Hello everyone, thanks for spending part of the incredibly busy lunchtime in this talk. So I'm Katharine Beaumont, I work for Voxxed. If you knew Voxxed before, I am Lucy too, but not very many of you might know her. So you're always a student in software development, which I'm sure you know, and life is a constant journey of learning, but never more so true in software development, where as soon as you know hello world and you go on to something else, suddenly you're on lambdas and streams and then modular system and it gets more and more complicated. So Voxxed is a site designed to share knowledge, and what better way to keep learning by looking at Voxxed, reading the articles and maybe seeing if you've got something to contribute, because Voxxed belongs to you. Think of Voxxed as an open source site. We don't have any advertisement on the website. It's hopefully nice and clear and easy to read, and we accept contributions and we value those contributions because it helps us all to grow and learn together. So what we want for Voxxed is articles, news pieces, tutorials, videos, anything kind of coming up in Java or associated languages or the JVM landscape, anything that you think people would be interested to learn about. So what makes a good news item? First of all, something that's fresh and relevant. If it's a bit older and it's maybe been around for a few weeks, it might be worth being more like an article than a news item, because there's time to kind of look into it. A clear introduction, so there's something called a bounce rate. I'm sure you've come across it when you're kind of flicking through tabs. I always have about 50 tabs open and I maybe read like the first however many words of an article, and that informs me as to whether or not I'm going to read the rest of it. So the introduction is how you really let people know what it's about and persuade them to read it. So it should be basically a who, what, when, where, why, with strong clues as to what the content is. The middle is a bit more depth, and then this is kind of like essay class in school with beginning, middle and end. And then the end is like the takeaways. So we've got this piece of news, what do we want to gain from it? In terms of a bad news item, something with unjustified opinion, like speculative maybe. Quotes, content and images without permission. We do sometimes get submissions to Voxxed where they're very clearly taken from other websites, which isn't very good. Or anything obtained unfairly, so maybe you overheard something or you weren't supposed to know. It can be cross-posted on your personal blog, and it can be on other sites. So I'll just see if I can show you a news item. So this is one we had recently about the proposal to add ahead of time compilation to Java. So there's an introduction there which quite clearly outlines it. We've got a new proposal, adds it, so it's really, really obvious what it's about. A nice heading to lead you in your kind of reading journey. A little bit of information, and then it finishes with a video. So it doesn't take very long to read. It's quite quick, and it's very clear what it's about. So a good article or a tutorial is something that's a bit more in depth. So the introduction should really be a signpost for the rest of the blog. I had a dissertation supervisor once who told me that your introduction should be like the funnel of a swimming pool. So you kind of explain the outline of the ideas and then you draw into what specifically you're going to focus on, if that makes any sense to anyone. It took me a very long time to understand what he was talking about. But basically help the reader. So this is what I'm doing and this is how I'll take you through it. Clear headers to break up the article into segments. So if any of you read a blog post where it just looks like noise and you're almost, especially if you have my attention span, immediately turned off reading the detail because there's just so much to go through. So headers are a really nice way of keeping your attention. Lots of examples and screenshots. And consistent level of background knowledge is really important. So if you're writing an article for experts, don't go into the kind of beginner details and vice versa. And quotes or code examples and further resources at the end. So I'll show you an example of a really popular article. Which I think is the most viewed article on Voxxed with over 50,000 views. So it has a nice introduction, like here's the kind of the bulk of the swimming pool. Everyone's talking about microservices. You can read a lot about it. And then it kind of narrows it down into this article is about the challenges, requirements and best practices. So it's really obvious what you're going to get from the article. The headings break it up, otherwise it's very long. And then as we go further down, there are pictures and lots of links. And it all wraps up nicely in the conclusion. If you have time, check out that article. So, sorry, I did that. Okay, bad article. Something that's maybe unclear and there's too much technical jargon. If you looked at it, and maybe you'd have to have a PhD in the particulars that they're talking about to understand it. Something that's been done to death. So maybe my first Docker container. Probably already have a few articles about that. Something that's been plagiarized, which is quite a strong word, but it can also just mean replicated or duplicated. Maybe you read Martin Fowler's Clean Code. Bob Martin, sorry, his Clean Code. And you just essentially rewritten Clean Code. So that's something that is a bit questionable, and we'd probably stay away from that. Whereas if you were summarising it, that's different. Okay, we're not in France, but Tintin didn't really fit in here, so asterisks. So what are the statistics? So we look for a maximum of 3,000 words. It can be a bit longer, but it's very difficult to keep people's attention. And also, if it's a bit longer, then you should maybe consider a career as a technical author. Write a book. About 15 minutes to read, so again, it's just keeping people's involvement. Images need to be used with full permission, so no copyright infringements. Code examples are great. Okay, so here are some FAQs anyway, if you're thinking like, oh, that sounds really nice, maybe I'll contribute, but I don't have enough experience. So Voxxed is supposed to be a platform for everyone of different levels of experience. So we don't really have enough articles at the moment of Introduction to Java or Introduction to Java FX or The First Steps or My First Pojo or anything like that. So there is room for everything. I'm not a programmer. We have a number of very successful non-programming articles about DevOps, for example, or culture and community. There are people who are better qualified, but they're probably not writing articles, so get involved. I don't have any time, so it can take as little as maybe 30 minutes to write a news piece, and it can take as long as you like to write an article. And what if you don't know what to write about? In which case my response is, what do you want to write about? The best way to learn is to teach, so have a look. Does anyone have any questions? I will show you. Oh, thank you. So the question is, how do you submit an article or a news item? So on the website here, there is a submit article section. Well, that would happen. Hang on a second. So if you just go to this page, you can do it there. Alternatively, you can contact me and email me if you'd rather do it in Google Docs or something, and I can go through the pain of putting it in the WordPress CMS. Any other questions?
What's the review process?
It's basically just me. And if I need any opinions, then I just ask, say, Mark Hazel or Stefan, or anyone else who's hanging around on Skype at the time. Yeah, I'm the gatekeeper. Anyone else? Cool. Well, thank you very much. Come up and ask me afterwards if you have anything, or I'll be at the back of the exhibition hall in the middle. Thank you.